What if I told you that having 100,000 followers and a sponsorship deal could feel completely empty, and that discovering the emptiness was the key to building something real? Today's guest went from pre-med track to powerlifting influencer to building a six-figure business before he turned 25. His story will completely change how you think about success, failure, and what it actually means to build life on your own terms. This is in theory. Our guest hit his first 20K profit month before graduating college. He built a following of over 100,000 people as a sponsored athlete. He launched multiple businesses, survived a failed startup, and learned the hard way that viral fame and real wealth are completely different games. But more importantly, he figured out something most people never do: how to stop chasing other people's definition of success and start building what actually matters. In today's episode, we're going deep the moment he realized his dad's path wasn't his path, why the biggest social media success feels like the biggest failure, what a corporate internship taught him about freedom, and watching months of powerlifting work at just 5 pounds to a PR prepared him to build businesses that actually last. Let's dive in. Take me back to the moment when you first realized you didn't want to be a doctor. Was there a specific conversation, a feeling, or was it more gradual?
Honestly, thank you for the intro. And I think I grew up always thinking I was going to be a doctor because my dad was a doctor and that's kind of just the way everything went. I took all the kind of science classes in high school and I even shadowed at like some hospitals. But I think there must have been one day where I came across like the Ty Lopez video or the advertisement where it's like, these are my books, this is my Lamborghini. And I think that kind of opened the kind of door to the online money space for me. And I kind of just fell down the rabbit hole. And this was back in like 2018, I think. And that's when I think dropshipping was really, really popping. So I kind of explored that space. When I made like probably 20K rev one of the months, but it was like barely any profit. But just knowing that it was like possible to make money online and kind of make something for myself made me want to pursue like business long term. And it kind of discouraged me from just wanting to go down the path of being a doctor just because my dad kind of had pushed me that way. And that's kind of when those first feelings of, okay, I want to build something of my own and I want to pursue business kind of stirred up for me.
How did your dad react when you told him you're not going to follow his footsteps and when you started dropshipping and seeing a little bit more success in that path? How did your dad react?
Yeah. So it's actually quite funny. Like I mentioned, I got into drop shipping like my sophomore year, so like second year of high school, and I only really committed fully to not pursuing like medicine in college prior to like when applications were due my senior year. And basically I told him like, "Hey, I don't want to go down like 8 years of schooling and pay all this money just to kind of become a doctor because it wasn't really something I'm passionate about. I like genuinely feel a lot of people say they want to become a doctor because the pay is good, etc. But I think you need to be really committed to go down like 8 to 10 years of schooling just for good pay because there's plenty of ways to make money. And when I told him, there's definitely some pushback from him and my mom. When I originally told them I was just going to apply to business school and I was just going to go to business school, like there's definitely a lot of pushback. But I ended up pursuing computer science and business in school. And I guess that made them a little happier because obviously like the traditional, like be a doctor, engineer, something of that nature. So when I had both of those things like engineering and business, they were a little more accepting of it. Now they're pretty supportive. My dad's like in businesses of his own. They still want me to get a job while I work on business at the moment. But yeah, so far so good.
So, how did you deal with the guilt of like disappointing your father? How did that kind of, how did you handle that?
Yeah, like admittedly, I do like want to make I know some people are like kind of disconnected from their parents and like, I'm going to live my own life. And I think like you should live, it is your life. So you should live it like on your own. But I think like my parents have always been super supportive of like everything I've ever done, and they've been like a big part of my life. So yeah, like they are still a big part of it. I want to make sure they're kind of proud of what I'm doing, etc. And I guess like the guilt, Well, I guess at the end of the day, like I know they just want me to be successful and well off, and becoming a doctor or becoming an engineer is like the least risky path for me to have some stable income, live a comfortable life. But I know like deep down, like through all the businesses I've done at the moment, like I can make income on my own and I can run a business. So I only really ever feel guilty if I know I'm not doing the things I should be within business. Like for example, when I was first starting out, if I'm not doing the outreach or if I'm not filming the content, if I'm not doing the things to actually move the business forward, that's when I start feeling a little more guilty because it's like I'm almost throwing away this opportunity to get like a high paying job just to kind of like sit around and not like business isn't easy. Whenever I'm sitting around and not moving the business forward, I do feel guilty. But if I'm on top of things, it's honestly I know I'll go like where I need to be. So,
Yeah, it's a very, very common thing where a lot of parents that, especially in the beginning when you're starting entrepreneurship, is where they, usually where people don't see results, where, you're not getting paid and you're doing a lot of the trench work and all that stuff, right? So that's kind of when it's best to not, I guess, tell them and to just grind until you start getting results and the result speaks for itself. So you mentioned there was, pressure from your family to go to engineering and to make sure you get a stable job and everything. Can you paint a picture of what the pressure looked like day to day? Was it explicit or was it the kind of, you know, lives in silence and assumptions?
yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'm in grad school right now. I graduated undergrad this past May, and I'm graduating grad school this upcoming May. And when I say pressure, like nothing like toxic or it's still like supportive in the sense that they just want the best for me again, right? So like at the moment, my dad or my family wants me to get a job and do business like kind of in tandem because he thinks, oh, if you just get this experience within the industry and stuff like that, if you transition to working on business full time and if for whatever reason it doesn't work, you can always go back into getting a high paying job because you had some prior experience. So he really wants me to kind of do both at the same time after I graduate. And the pressure just kind of looks like whenever I'm talking to him, he's like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But I know it comes from a good place. So I don't feel necessarily any negative feelings around that. But I'm still kind of at the moment set on, okay, business isn't something that you can just half-ass. There are people playing the game to win, and they're putting all their time to win. So I'm very much like in the boat of if you want to go far in business and you want to do well, you need to treat it as like this full-time thing you're doing, especially like early on. I would consider myself as being early on. I'm sure there's other things I'll learn once I'm further along, but I want to give it like all the attention it needs and grind to make it as big as possible. And that's kind of my reasoning around not wanting to do both at the same time.
Um, yeah, it's kind of tricky because I saw that something where parents really want you to have a plan B. They don't want to see you, struggle and everything. But at the same time, to make a business work for the most part, you need to be all in. And yeah, it's like that quote. I don't know. You've been seeing, if you've been seeing it recently, reposting it. It says to be ball in, you need to be all in. So yeah, you need to be all in. And if you have a plan B and stuff, you'll be distracted. And yeah, it takes a lot to get a business to be successful. So it's kind of tricky balancing both. But I believe that what is your opinion? But I believe that having different skill sets and building on top of each business that you fail, that you experience, you're getting more and more experience, more and more skills, more and more knowledge to be able to be more successful later on. What is
Yeah,
your
for
take on
sure.
that?
I mean, I definitely agree with that. I'm not sure if we mentioned it earlier, but I failed, I think, 5 different businesses in total now. Like it was drop shipping, SMMA, online fitness coaching, organic drop shipping, and then my crypto startup. And yes, they're all failed, as in I'm not working on them anymore or they didn't generate kind of the results I was looking for. But I think each time like you learn certain skills and all of your skills compound to let you then eventually make the money that you're looking for. For example, when I was drop shipping, I learned a lot of the stuff around marketing, Facebook ads, what drives the clicks, etc. Right. And then SMMA, I learned more about like the service side of things and I learned outreach. Loom videos were still really big back then. And I didn't get them to work back then, but the act of kind of going through the process, like, okay, what is this like, etc. I think that first step is a big step for whatever you're doing outreach later on. And then I also got exposed to kind of like the software and startup world. And that's a lot different than the kind of service space, coaching, info product space, because I think right now the coaching and info product space is big on like, okay, marketing, sales. How do we get all these people in? And then software is like everyone is focused, like all these technical guys who are not like the most business minded are all like product, product, product. And I think when you merge those two, where you have the obviously the marketing and the sales, and then you also learn how to make great product, like those are the elements obviously of making a great business. And being able to see like both sides of it was really eye-opening to me. And now like in my future ventures, I'm not all in on one or the other. I understand like each are kind of crucial to making a long-lasting business. So now that I've kind of cultivated skills from these different things, I think it's really helpful for kind of what I'm doing right now and what I plan to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Having, like you said, the different skill sets that compound after each business, whether, whatever, how it does. It's like when I read your story before this podcast, it was saying that yeah, not giving up is what's the most important. And as you keep going on, you keep going, and each businesses usually will get better and better. And that shows like a lot of it is us, right? We gotta improve, work on us, invest in us, because that's what will make the businesses successful. Like if you had all the knowledge, the experience, and all this, you know exactly what to do, which means you'll be successful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think adding on to that, I think something that I tell a lot of people around me that are looking to get into business or have come to me for advice is like everything works, right? Dropshipping worked back then, SMMA worked back then, crypto startups work, online fitness coaching works. Like they all work. If but if you weren't able to get it to work, it's because you lack some sort of skill. Like there's some sort of skill deficiency there. I think it's really powerful to take ownership for that rather than saying, okay, like for growth operating, for example, right? Outreach doesn't work. Too many people are doing outreach. Things like this, right? I think that does no benefit to you because there are people ripping with outreach. Like it worked fairly well for me, whether it's because I came in with some skill sets that I had learned prior that let me kind of start at a higher skill kind of level than people who are just getting started or whatever. But I think like everything works. And as soon as you like shift the blame from like something external to internal and you realize, okay, I just need to level up. I just need to get better. Maybe I don't understand marketing. Maybe I don't understand how to make an offer. Once you kind of take ownership for everything, I think for me, that's when I started really seeing like some like small success. And I think that's like one of the core kind of ideas that I try to instill into other people asking for advice because you can't expect to come into business and be like, even if you were great in school, even if you were a great athlete, whatever, and you're used to being like the best or very good, you have to understand coming into business, this is a completely new realm, right? There are people who have been at this for decades. And I think it's foolish to think that within 6 months, within a year, that you would be able to make something like amazing. Yes, you can move very fast, but these things take time. It takes time to learn things. So yeah, I think it's really important to shift blame onto ourselves and take ownership for everything that you're doing.
I really love that. I don't remember where I heard it from, but just saying that everything's your fault just as a game changer, because then you control what's your fault, right? You like exactly. Let's go back on outreach that you mentioned. The previous podcast, Andreas, he explained how he did outreach. He literally found like five people or something, and that he really wanted to work with or work for, and just outreaching to every single person in the company, finding their emails, guessing their emails, using softwares, whatever it may be, right? Like outreaches like that, they're really intentional, that you're following up a ton, you're messaging everybody in the company, everybody that can possibly get you in contact with that person. Your chances of getting a response, and once they see the determination and everything, you literally separate yourself from everybody else. So like you said, there it comes to skill issue, it comes to everything's your fault. and you being, able to really know what to do, and being able to just take accountability, take action, and know that everything is learned. So there's just a gap in knowledge, and that you have to work towards that. And you have to pay, like Hermosi says, you have to pay the ignorance
Ignorance.
debt. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned take action, right? I think that's the other element of it. I think one, you don't have the skills. So like Hormozy says, when you don't have the skills, you just have to do like an insane amount of volume to quickly learn and iterate on those things. And it's funny because I have a notepad here and I flipped to the very first page. I found this in my room back home at my parents' house. And you can see, like, I don't know how well you can see that,
Yeah.
but I think it's from May 2020. And I have a routine here. It says, recall dreams, make bed, drink water, meditation, physical movement, cold shower, self improvement, read, right? All the kind of like if I want to be successful, I need to do all these like little things. Honestly, like in 2020, I was making no money. Like I don't do any of that stuff now. And I make way, way more money than I did then. And I think it's like this idea is like this like mental masturbation. Like I think I'm being productive. I'm like making my bed. I'm taking the cold shower. I'm meditating. But like at the end of the day, that doesn't make you money. Like just taking action. So like it's the same thing with like learning. Yes, you need to learn, but learn not by consuming YouTube, etc. Learn by actually doing the thing because that's when you learn fastest. Because honestly, like all of that stuff, it's not getting you closer to your goal. You just feel like you're being productive, but really you're not, and you're not going to get where you want to go. So like I urge, like if you are planning every single thing that you need to be doing rather than actually taking action, just start because I think that's when I started seeing results compared to when I was just trying to do all the morning routine stuff to feel like a productive guy.
Yeah. That is really true of the actual taking action, what moves the needle. But I still think those things are important, especially in the beginning where you can start building discipline. Because a lot of people, when I was, before I started business, I was in high school, and, not the best routines, consuming too much YouTube, entertainment, doing a lot of, video games, a lot of these things. But having those habits at that stage helps a lot to start building confidence in yourself, discipline, and to put you in the right mindset to, I guess, take action. Because, if you're waking up late and pulling up your phone or whatever the case may be, you're a lot in better state to take action, and to, especially at that stage in the beginning, because it's like compounding, right? Those things you might not think helped you, but you said, let's say you did that for many years, but that's what got you to that stage number two, right? And then from stage number two, what actually moves the needle. But those habits, some of them you might be doing them naturally, maybe not in order, or something, right? But I still believe they're pretty pretty valuable for
I
people.
do think there are some like really great habits, like just getting exercise or drinking enough water, like things like this. But I think it's just really important to be aware of, am I just doing this to feel productive or is this like actually a benefit to my, like, am I just doing this to procrastinate the actual work that I should be doing? Or is this actually like a healthy habit for me? For me, obviously, like a gym is a big part of my story. And I think that helped me like develop a lot of discipline that I can use now. But I also think that if you find yourself on your phone a lot or procrastinating, not doing work, and just hanging out with friends all the time. I think once you actually get into business, whether it's like sign your first client, whether it's, I mean, I guess in this example, when you sign that first client, right, you are now not only doing work for yourself, you know you need to fulfill for that client, right? So what I found is after I've signed my first client, I no longer was doing all the bullshit on my phone when I wasn't supposed to be because I knew I had to get that work done for them, right? So when I knew I had work for clients, like I was getting up earlier because I was like, okay, I need to make sure this client is happy. I need to make sure that we do a big launch. I need to make sure that all the emails are in place, whatever it is. When you actually have stuff going on, that's not like just like bullshit, I feel like it's much easier to focus on those things. Whereas like when you don't have much going on, like you just kind of fill that time in with whatever is kind of stimulating or easiest to kind of consume in the moment.
Yeah, that is true. Going back a little bit, during sophomore year or high school, you're doing drop shipping and trying a few things. I think you said SMMA as well. Most kids that age are worried about prom dates and video games and other things like that. What got you more into that world? I think you mentioned Ty Lopez, but elaborate more on what pulled you to that world and starting entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of three things. The first being that since I knew my path, so like up until that point was becoming a doctor, I knew that if I was going to tell my parents I no longer wanted to choose this path, and if I wanted to reassure myself that I could do business instead of medicine to like work for myself, kind of live. At the time, it was like, okay, I want to move to Bali and live a life like that, right? That's what everyone was doing. But I think I needed to prove to myself that this was actually possible for me. So I was really focused on like generating revenue to prove not only to my parents, but to myself that this is something I could do, right? The second thing is, as like any young man, right? Or not, maybe not everyone, but I definitely got caught up in a lot of the materialistic things, right? The Lambos, the big houses, the nice
The flashy
watches.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really sucked into the lifestyle stuff. So I was like, how can I have these nice things? I grew up like fairly comfortable. Like I don't have any rags to kind of riches story. So I think it's a combination of like I wanted to have these nice things for myself, but also I knew my dad was fairly successful. So how could I also be successful but in my own kind of path? I guess maybe I put pressure on myself to, okay, I need to have all these nice things, et cetera. I want to have these nice things. And then the third thing was, I think I got really lucky with the friend group I made in high school. A few of them, it was me, and I believe, I can't think off the top of my head, but a couple more guys, like five or six. And a lot of them were doing Amazon FBA at the time. One of them actually made like $200,000, I think his freshman or sophomore year with Amazon FBA with the product. And I think that was really inspiring to me as well, just because there was someone as young as me who grew up very similar to me that was actually doing it and making it work. So we all kind of bonded over online business together. And I think having those friends who are very, like, not only driven in school, but had this entrepreneurial mindset kept me kind of on that path for a long time. So, like, I very much believe you're a product of your environment. So I think if I had more friends that were maybe like partying in high school and doing those kinds of things, like maybe I would have like went down that path a little bit more. But since I was really lucky to find these friends that I'm actually very close to even till this day, even like 7 years later, um, I think those are kind of like the three things that kind of kept me on this path. Like I've come off it, like definitely, but I think I always return to it because of those kind of three things.
I think that is you're really lucky to find people because usually people in school are stuck into the day to day high school tests and a lot of those things. But yeah, I didn't have too much friends in high school and stuff that were doing too much business. But what I found is like people like you in online communities that I joined, it was just surrounded with them. I was just spending a ton of time, actually building real friendships and eventually meeting in person and stuff. Like we met in person, was it 1 or 2 times, I think? Yeah. So, like, building that real, relationships is what I focused on, and I think, like you said, makes the biggest difference is your environment that keeps you towards that. So, yeah, that definitely will keep you, you are the sum of the people you surround yourself with. So, yeah. So, you said revenue showed you something bigger, or the money that you made. Walk me through what you saw after you started making money. So you said this is the path and not medical school.
Yeah. So I guess like when I was drop shipping, like I didn't make much profit, right? But when I was seeing like making like having $2,000 days or $20,000 in a month, like barely any revenue. But I think that's besides the point. I think the fact that I had put something together, like a website, I had researched a product, I had done all like kind of the CRO stuff, like conversion rate things, to get more people to check out, et cetera. And people were actually buying the product. And I like realized even at 15 years old, it was possible for me to make money from my bedroom, from my little hometown room. I think it showed me like again, like this is possible. This is not like some fake thing that people just shill to make money online. And I think what's really interesting, like around that, I probably bought like my first course as well. And I know like even today, like a lot of people are anti-course, like courses are a scam, coaching is a scam, whatever, right? And I'm still like, I agree. Like there is some like bad fish out there. Maybe there was a lot of bad fish out there, but there are also great people that have like changed my life. For example, like Brady, I don't like the audience might not know, but I think he's one of the people that have changed my life more recently. And I think just knowing that was possible by making your first like money online, that's like kind of when you have that identity switch from, okay, I'm just a student, I'm just a high schooler to, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I made my money online. And I think that was the big shift for me. And kind of what has pushed me to continue despite the ups and downs, knowing that like, okay, this is possible. People are actually doing this. It's not all fake out.
Yeah, and that kinda once you started seeing that, is that when you decided, like, you don't wanna do the medical school thing?
Yeah. So I think the medical school thing is more so like when you're a kid, kind of again, like you're a product of your environment, right? You follow what your friends are doing, you follow what your parents say. And for me, like I had always been raised like you'll become a doctor. So I didn't really explore any paths kind of outside of that. And once I made this revenue, I was like, because I had no real passion for being a doctor. I just knew that my dad did it. So I was like, okay, cool. I want to be like my dad. But once I started making money online and realizing, I think for me, it's more so building something of my own. I think being a doctor actually is a little different than most corporate jobs because I think saving people's lives and doing things like that is like really meaningful. Whereas like if I go down the path of engineering, it's like, okay, I'm just building somebody else's dream. I don't really get to see the big impact, whatever. So I care less about that. But I think being able to build something for myself, spending the rest of my life building something of my own that can potentially provide value to other people. Maybe I can help employ other people, teach people skills. I think that's really cool to me. Like even right now, I have a client that a done for you client, and I actually brought on like two of my friends here at school that wanted to get into the online business space. And I'm hoping like obvious it takes a little bit more of my time, at least to start. But I just like they're really good buddies of mine and I want to kind of show them kind of what's possible online. So I brought them on. I'm kind of showing them the ropes and things like that. I think make it meaningful because it's my own thing and I can choose kind of what I want.
Yeah, I think once after you got success and you're actually able to help people that are starting out at the place, where the places that you were before, and you're actually able to impact them, like I've really, really, really enjoyed that and, found a lot of purpose in it as well. Just giving short advice, short voice note feedback, whatever it is to people that are, looking for help from you. And then you actually see them making a change, getting results and stuff like that. And then they come back to you all happy and everything. It gets, a lot of purpose. So, especially when you're doing kind of something that you want is even better because you're also passionate about that. So that just motivates you to keep going. So now let's talk a little bit about your powerlifting chapter. So, like you said, you had a breakup that sent you to the gym. And then looking back now, what was that version of you actually looking for? Was it really about getting strong or was it, you know, working out just to, I guess, cope?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a canon event for most young males. You go through the like first love breakup and you kind of just introspect on, okay, how can I improve myself? Like, was it my fault? Et cetera, et cetera. I was always like an athlete. I played a lot of sports growing up. So I had done like a lot of calisthenics prior, but I only really got into the gym kind of after that. And as things kind of opened up after COVID, I think for me, it was more so of a thing of like self-confidence. I was always kind of on I was always athletic, but I was always on the kind of skinnier side of things. So I think I just wanted to like feel better about like my body in terms of like, okay, I'm bigger. I'm also on like the shorter side. I'm 5'7". So I think I wanted to be more comfortable and more confident like with the way I looked and how I presented myself. So I think that's like the main reason I originally got into the gym, and I was training really hard, and it ended up being something that was really addicting for me. For whatever reason, whether it was like I was burnt out from school and the relationship and things of that, I found the gym to be like very refreshing and like reliable in a sense, if that makes sense. And eventually that gym kind of phase, when I went to college, it was no longer about like kind of this kind of coping mechanism. It was just something I really enjoyed and became part of my life. And it was pretty much my entire identity for probably 3, 4 years. Like I was the gym guy, right? I talked about the gym. It was just gym in school. Like that was me. And when I got to college and I no longer had a sport to play, like I wasn't doing taekwondo, I wasn't playing tennis or anything, I kind of missed that sense of competition and being able to compete. So I found myself like diving into powerlifting because I found that I was somewhat naturally strong. And for a lot, and that's how kind of I got into the powerlifting space. And then I wanted attention. So I started posting on TikTok and Instagram. And then I went down that entire influencer rabbit hole for a little bit.
So, yeah, you said powerlifting, you said it became your top priority the first 3 years of college, and then yeah, like, that's intense, and then what did you sacrifice to make that happen, like, to make it your top priority for, a few years?
Yeah, so for me, like I was definitely like OD about it. Like I would spend like 3 hours in the gym every day or whenever I had training days. Because I find that when I get into something and I'm really passionate about it, I get like fairly obsessive. It's hard for me to focus on any other things other than like the main thing that I'm kind of going after. And the things I sacrificed were likely I wasn't going out like other people. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing all the things that you would expect in a traditional college experience because I found that if I did any of those things and it affected my training the next day, I would kind of beat myself up over it because it's like I drank, I didn't even enjoy it that much that day, and now my training is suffering as well. So I was really like set and focused on being like a top competitor in powerlifting, trying to get to the highest levels. So I did sacrifice like pretty much anything that was sabotaging my performance in the gym. I kind of let go. And for me, it wasn't, I guess, as hard as maybe other people because I don't see myself as a big party guy. It's not the things I enjoy the most. Like I prefer to kick it with like a small group of friends, like at the house, something like that, more chill. But definitely didn't have the typical college experience that you think of, especially going to a school. Like you maybe don't know the school I go to, but I go to USC and it's definitely known for its kind of like play hard, or
Work study hard
yeah,
and
study hard,
play
play
hard?
hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
Work hard, play hard. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I guess, yeah, you didn't really, sacrifice too many things that are important for you, I guess, right?
Yeah. It was more, I just really enjoyed powerlifting. So they were just, it wasn't a, yeah, there was nothing like really difficult for me to let go of because I just didn't enjoy the drinking and the partying as much as some people.
Okay, that's good then. You didn't you still, spent your time into something meaningful, building yourself, building your confidence, and also competing. But here's what fascinates me. You started that posting content about your fitness and then you hit 100K followers through all your platforms and then you got the Legion sponsorship. You had what most people would call success, but you said it didn't feel right. When did you first notice that feeling, and how long did you ignore it before you admitted it to yourself and did something about it?
Yeah, I think so. It was like 85K on TikTok, 15K on Instagram. And I was definitely in it for the wrong reasons. I first started because, okay, like I want to be TikTok famous. I want to be famous in general. And like, honestly, whenever I was back home, like people I didn't know would come up to me and be like, hey, you're that guy on TikTok. And even at the college gym here, people would come up to me and be like, hey, I've seen you on TikTok. So like, whenever that happens, it's like, wow, I feel good. People know me. Whether that came from like a place of insecurity or whatever, I'm not sure, but it did feel good, right? But I think as I did it longer and longer, I realized I wasn't building like a brand and a following in the right way. And what I mean by that is you see a lot of these guys nowadays, like Hermosi, Daniel Dalen, people like this who are talking to the camera, building like some real connection with their audience and being genuine. Like that wasn't the type of audience I was building. I was just following trends and doing all the virality stuff to get as many views as possible. So like, yeah, I had 100K across platforms, but I don't feel like anybody really cared about kind of what I had to say. And I didn't feel like I was making a positive impact on the people like in a way that I wanted to. I was just solely doing it for the views, for the followers, right? And I think eventually I kind of burnt out because it all amounted to just views and followers. And obviously that like money, like that isn't what is the thing that is fulfilling. So once I realized like I wasn't really making any genuine impact and I wasn't building any genuine connection with my audience, it was like, okay, this is not something I want to continue doing. And I kind of let it go. And on top of that, I think it's pretty well known now that just being an influencer doesn't make a lot of money. I don't know if I was making a few $100 from the Legion sponsorship. They sent me free supplements, but like realistically, that's not a business. Like I'm not making that much money. So it didn't fulfill like any need that I really had. It wasn't fulfilling like the financial side of things, and it wasn't fulfilling like my want and desire to have a positive impact on people.
Okay, so you're saying you kind of were chasing clout without making a positive impact. So yeah, that's pretty brutally honest. So what was the exact moment where you looked in the mirror and admitted that to yourself? What was, and what did that cost you?
I'm not sure if I had any one moment I'm not sure if I had any one moment where I kind of realized and like, okay, this is not what I want to do anymore. I think it was more of a gradual thing. Like I mentioned, just having the sponsorship and like kind of the TikTok revenue for views wasn't enough. So I also started some personal coaching for like $100 a month. And I think that kind of solidified like, okay, this is not what I wanted to do because I was more interested in making money than I was in actually helping my clients. So once I realized like, okay, I'm not even like giving the best product I can for these people. I'm not caring the way that a coach should care. I kind of stepped back and realized this, for whatever reason, this isn't resonating with who I am as a person. And I'm not charged and I don't feel energized to do this thing. So I kind of ended up, it kind of just slowly started fading away. I was posting less content. I lost my contract with Legion. Um, and it kind of just fizzled out where I was no longer kind of in the space and making content.
Because you're right, like, there's one big headline from this influencer that had, like, I think 2,000,000, 2 point something million followers, and she couldn't sell, like, was it 30, 20, 30 to 20 shirts? She couldn't even sell that. So, yeah, like, building a proper audience where you're able to actually make money from it, and when you're making money from it, you can actually focus on actually enjoying it and delegating the other things that you don't really like to do and focusing on what you really like. And when you focus on what you really like, you actually help people a lot more. So that's a lesson that you learn from powerlifting, that, posting content, because I did watch some of your content from the powerlifting, and it was more, for virality, like you mentioned, and all that. So what's the lesson that you learned from, doing the powerlifting and then being an influencer, that translated it into business and the next things that you did after that?
Yeah. So I think I learned more so what it meant to be successful online in terms of a business sense. If you just want to be famous, sure, you can maybe optimize for the virality and the views. But if you want to build, or if you want to have impact and you want to build a business that actually can scale and provide for you the way that people probably watching this and you want, it's really about like building that trust with that audience, right? I'm actually planning on just creating a new Instagram account and starting from scratch. I recently paid like 5 grand to a creative director that's going to help me with kind of being more authentic and sharing like kind of the vulnerable stories or moments of my story. But I think the main thing I learned is if you want to build a business through content, you need to build trust with your audience. And that means speaking to them, their pain points, and actually showing your struggles as a person as well. So, what I recommend to all my clients and to myself moving forward is don't just chase the views. Because I would rather at this point, like before I was trying to get 100,000 followers, then maybe 200, then 300. But I'd rather have a following of like a few hundred or 1,000 or 2,000 of people that I'm actually making a difference in their lives and people that actually trust me rather than just having these vanity metrics that don't really mean anything.
Yeah, that is, we're on the same path, working on building an audience that actually you're helping and that have trust in you, your authority, and your expertise. And that way you're actually able to help them and make a business out of it as well, or, fund whatever, business that you're working on. So tell me about the most, like you were saying, you're vulnerable. Like, I think you mentioned you had a Nokia internship. What was the most depressing day of your Nokia internship? And paint the scene. Like, what did you see? Who did you see? What went through your head and made you think, like, I can't let this be my life?
Yeah. I think this was like probably like only a few weeks after I met you, but I started my internship at Nokia and I quickly found that I didn't really have any time for myself. So obviously it was typical 9 to 5, but that's not it because you also have commuting, you have getting ready. So I would be waking up at like 7 a.m., get ready, have to commute an hour all the way there, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on traffic, work 9 to 5, and then commute all the way back home. So I would get home around like 6:30. Then you also got to have dinner. You go to the gym because that was a big part of my life and train. And then after all of that, like the day's over, like you got to go to sleep if you want to wake up in the morning and actually have like decent sleep. And so like not only not having the time to do the things that I wanted to do, whether like in the future it's spending time with my family, my kids, my wife, or it's pursuing things that I like to do, whether well right now for me it's jujitsu, but whatever it is in the future, I felt like I wouldn't have the time to actually do that if I continued on that path. And then on top of that, the work I was actually doing at Nokia from 9 to 5, it wasn't anything that I was super proud of or I felt was super fulfilling. I just felt like I was clocking in, doing kind of what I was told to help, again, build somebody else's dream or somebody else's kind of desires. And then I would come home and every day was kind of the same. And then you look at the people around you that have been there. Not to say there's anything wrong with the 9 to 5, but it just wasn't kind of what I wanted. And I'd seen people there for 20, 30, 40 plus years, and I knew that's not what I wanted. So then I went like, okay, how can I start a business right now? How can I make money so that this is in my future? And that's when I stumbled, or I knew about growth operating prior, but then I was like, okay, I need to go in, figure out how to do this thing. And then I must have met you like a few weeks later after um, kind of going all in on that and trying to make it work.
Yeah, let me go back a little bit. And you said you were talking, or you saw the people that are 20 that was doing that internship for 20, 30 years. So you saw their older employees and grinding out their lives at Nokia. Did you talk to any of them? Did anyone know they were trapped, or did they had convinced themselves that they were, content?
I don't think that was like a conversation I like explicitly had with anyone because I guess I'm not trying to get into their personal life, especially when they're older and more senior at the company. But I just knew for myself, like maybe they were like genuinely fulfilled in it because I guess over time, obviously, you get more responsibility, you become a manager, you feel like you have more impact and more control over kind of what's going on. But for me, like I just immediately, like there was no debate about it. I just immediately knew, no, this is not what I want to do. So yeah.
So, and then after that, you said kind of got into the growth operating and then you met me. So let's talk about the first, $1,000 setup fee that you said you made. It didn't make you feel rich for the first time. Talk to me to that moment that, you did the outreach, you got your first client, was it 50-50 and $1,000 setup fee? What was going through your head when you saw that hit your account?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, I'd done fitness coaching in the past, made like $100 a month, like with multiple clients. So I think I did something like $1,000 total with fitness coaching over a couple of months. Like, and I had 100,000 followers. Like, clearly I was doing something wrong. But when I was going all in on operating, and that first 1K hit my account or like hit my Stripe, the high that I felt was insane. I it was almost unbelievable. Like, I don't think words can even describe, like, how rich like, again, like, I come from a fairly comfortable background, so it's not like $1,000 was financially life-changing, but the fact that I had done it, like, I got into this new thing within a few weeks, I was making, like, decent money. It was really it was really something else, and if you're in the online business space, I'm sure you can remember your first, like, to the audience, like, your first, like, decent paycheck or decent amount of money that you made, and it's really, really something else.
Yeah, it's like motivating, like the first dollar, 10, 100, 1,000. Really, yeah, it is something else. Like you actually think like this is real. Like I remember the first time I got, was it 25? Was it like my first $50 or something? That came just from online. I'm like, I just made this out of thin air. I'm like, it was just from like school affiliates, but just seeing that come in just like broke some mental beliefs, and then it just kept pushing higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, and and I've had, like, close to five-figure wires come in after that, and they still, like, feel nothing like that first one, like, nothing compares on.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that first, internet money people say, right? Yeah, it's different. Like also that's something I wanted to ask about is what was let me put it on my phone. One of some of the questions from before, but what was like the beliefs you had to break to hit these numbers? Like for example, from your first client to 20K profit month, what was the identity shift that you had to make, the person you had to become between those two moments?
Yeah, I think for me, I wasn't even thinking about any of that. I think what like, looking back on kind of how everything went down, I think the real reason I was able to make progress so quickly, aside from maybe past experiences and skills I had developed, was because I hit like this rock bottom after getting that internship where it was like I genuinely felt like this feeling of like despair and like urgency to I need to get out of my situation, right? I think for the longest time, I was in this kind of space where I was feeling like, okay, I want to start my own business. I want to do my own things, but I was never in like the amount of pain to actually take action on that with the level of urgency I needed. So even though I knew I always wanted to start a business, I kind of told myself, okay, I'll just get a job. And then once I have some cash flow, I'll start a business. But, and so, like, I would think about that every day, like, I wanna start a business, but I wasn't feeling enough pain to actually step forward and make that jump into it at that point in my life. So, when I got the internship, like, whatever I was feeling here, like, went all the way down here, and I was like, "Okay, this like, I cannot live this life at all." And that's what kind of made me take action. So it was less about, like, who I had to become. Obviously, it was someone who took action, but I don't think it's something I consciously thought of, like, "Okay, I'm gonna start taking action now." It's just I was in, like, so much pain that I was kind of forced to do it, like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it pushed you, it showed you the life, that one path that you could have taken, and it showed you what that kind of looked like versus this new path that looks a lot more enticing, exciting,
Yeah,
that
and
something that you actually want to do.
And it was always something like I told myself, like, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. And I think everyone tell like a lot of people who get into entrepreneurship tell themselves that. And but it didn't feel real until I got that internship, right? Like until I was actually there and actually doing the 9 to 5, I was like, wow, yeah, I don't want this at all. So it just made that whole experience made it feel like real and kind of confirmed all the things I was feeling. And that's what kind of pushed me to take all that massive action. And I think that's ultimately what led to getting those results fairly soon.
Yeah. N- let's talk a little bit more about this before we're talking about your crypto project that you worked on. This is kinda surprising, like, just me, my point of view of seeing you jump in, you jumped in the community, we met and everything, and then I just saw you going from, just getting started to in, like, was it in 2 weeks, clothing 3 different people at $1,000 each and at 50-50 all 3. Like, what? that was unheard of at that time, of somebody that just got started closing three people with a setup fee and 50-50, which is the highest, one of the highest, percentage that you can work with people. Kind of explain me like how that kind of happened, and yeah, and to the moment that we met and we also worked together on one of the projects.
Yeah, I think so. If I like recall like kind of the stats, I think I sent like 54 Loom videos and closed 3 clients from that. So this was all like within a week. But I think I maybe what led to kind of the success that I had was obviously prior skills. I didn't come into the program with skills that everyone had, I feel like. I had always done like public speaking in the past, so things like speech, debate, things of that nature. So I think on camera I was kind of comfortable conveying my thoughts and being well spoken, which I think is a part of sales and filming outreach. So I think that was a big plus that kind of made the process a little bit easier for myself. But I also chose a niche that I had some familiarity with. All three of those creators were in the tech career coaching space. And as someone who had applied to jobs prior to then in the tech space, I think that was something that let me have some relatability to them. So I think in combination with the speaking skills I had prior, as well as picking a niche that I had some knowledge of, that kind of really let me kind of skip some hurdles. Because I think if I went after a niche I had no experience with, like that was a lot more competitive, like trading or e-com or something like that, I think I would have struggled a lot more just because everybody's going after those niches, whether they're the most experienced operator or whether they're a brand new operator. And if you're a brand new operator and you have no experience operating as well as in that niche specifically, I think you're just making it a lot harder for yourself. But I also think that when I talk to people who are trying to do this outreach and saying they're not getting results, they're often not doing, like, it's ironic because I only sent out 53 videos, but some people don't even do that. Some people send
Yeah,
2 videos
I was gonna
like
say that.
a day and they send like 14 and they're like, outreach doesn't work for me, or they send 1 video a day. There's actually a guy, I don't want to say his name, but you probably know him. And he was in GA. He is in GA now. I don't know if he was ever in Creator Accelerator, but he came to me.
GA, just for the audience, GA is a growth accelerator from Yusuf.
Yeah. And he came to me and he was like, bro, I'm in this, like, I'm working this sales job and I can't like get any clients. Outreach isn't working for me. And then I asked him, how many outreaches are you sending? And he was like, I can't remember the exact number, but not enough. Right. And I basically told him, like, bro, if you want a client, you could have a client in a week. Just send these Loom videos. And I kind of showed him what was working for me at the moment. Things change, obviously. But he came back to me like a week later and he had a client. And now he recently did like a 100K launch with one of his clients now. And yeah, I think he he had the skills, he had the drive, he had everything. He just, like, I agree, like outreach is mind-numbingly boring. It's horrible. I hate it. But if you want to get that client, if you want to change your life, you're just gonna have to suck it up and do it. If you're really, really bad, maybe it takes you a couple of weeks. But if you have some level of speaking and being able to kind of present yourself well on camera, I think if you do enough volume, you could have a client within a week. And I say that, and you might be thinking he did this a year and a half ago when growth operating was less saturated. We'll probably get into this, but I restarted growth operating September 1st. And after 3 days of outreach, I signed 2 clients. So it works. Outreach works. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise.
One thing I realized that you did well is not only that you worked hard, you worked smart. That's something that the people that you're reaching out to itself, that's kind of the advice I gave to people before, is like try to find something that you're experienced with, that you can relate with, especially when you're starting out, so that you have an advantage over somebody else that's starting out, right? If you know that topic, something that you learned at school, some sport that you're good at, whatever skill or knowledge that you have, you're going to be able to help maybe in the course development, in the calls, to understand with the copy, a lot of different things. You'll understand a lot more. So you're able to provide more value and relatability. How do you say?
Relatability.
my god, yeah. Okay, yeah, just yeah, you can say that. But then yeah, you're able to sign clients a lot better that way. So, yeah, you're definitely right of they need to take action, work hard. I think I even know who you're talking about, but yeah, they need to take action, work hard. But that's something that a lot of people miss out is like you posted content in the past, whether it's for fitness or things like that, as well as you said debates and all that stuff that help you. So yeah, the speaking content was, pretty comfortable with that. And then you actually worked smart because you're outreaching to people that you knew their niche a lot more. And you actually sent 54 balloons. Usually that might not sound like a lot. You're supposed to do 100 a day, the rule of 100, but a lot of people don't even send. I remember when I started like 2 years ago, a lot of people don't even send like, 5 a week or something, right? They procrastinate, they have life, they have, a lot of different things going on. So they don't send much. So 54 is, a significant number, especially once, you have to make it personalized for each person and all that stuff, right?
I think especially Loom, like it's one thing if you're just sending like a cold DM, like just a message, nothing else. I think you can one, obviously you can do way more volume and the response rates will be a lot lower. But whenever you're sending a loom, like if you send 10 looms, you'd probably get, I mean, you can look at how many people view, et cetera, and make adjustments based on that. Like, we don't have to go into like the deep strategy behind it, but people really like appreciate looms. Even the people I didn't sign as clients and they weren't looking for anything at the moment, I got feedback just saying, wow, this was great outreach. Keep it up. I like appreciate that you sent me this video. So people appreciate you sending a video to them. And I think that, yeah, the response rates are just so much higher when you're a real human being. You're not sending like spam. Oh, I agree. Like 50 looms doesn't sound like a lot when you compare it to just like unpersonalized outreach. But, but yeah,
So yeah, that's kind of what I've been hearing again and again is what works is being personalized, being intentional, picking the right people, and follow-ups. So yeah, but you did a lot of the things that helps you land clients. You know, had a little bit of personal brand, whether it's for business or not. You send to the right people and everything. So maybe things that you realize or not, but these are things that helped you towards signing the clients and that you should keep it up. And I've been seeing you improving your page. And like you said, you might start a brand new one fresh so that you can just, I guess, post about business, I assume.
I would say also, I know people might hear this and say, okay, he had a lot of followers and that's why he got clients. Actually, all of the clients I got were through email. Maybe they searched me up because what I would do is I would send it on DM and I would send it to their email if I could find the email, usually by going to their YouTube, whatever. But everyone that I got as a client actually responded to me on email. I don't know if they later checked out my IG, but if you're creating a Loom, I think this is really important. You already spent the time to make it, so just send it everywhere you have access to. Like maybe these big influencers aren't checking their DMs, like whatever. They might have a setter in there. They get too many DMs, but maybe a lot of people aren't emailing them. So send it there. Maybe they're on LinkedIn and nobody's messaging them on LinkedIn. Send it there. You've already spent the time, so just send it everywhere. And I think your response rates will be a lot higher. And also, I've had people that I book calls with say like, "Oh, I saw it on Instagram and I didn't respond, but then I saw it, you send it on email too." And I was like, "Wow, this guy's just not going to stop." So I'm gonna just like message him back and then book in a call because I like that he was persistent. Yeah.
Exactly. I really like that I really like where you said to reach out to send it on different platforms because there's some platforms that they're just getting started with, and usually when they don't have too many followers or too much traction on it, they see a lot of the DMs a lot more. Yeah, hitting them on every platform since you already put the effort into it. So that is uh that is some game right there. Now going a little bit into your crypto that project that you worked with after the growth operating. So you kind of had all the success in growth operating and you decided to pause and then you went to the crypto space. So tell me more about the crypto startup that didn't turn out the way you hoped. Like what are the lessons you learned, yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I had a friend, or I still have a friend that I'm very close with. And he kind of pitched me on, okay, let's go do this startup. because obviously there's a cap on what you can make with growth operating. I think it's important to understand what it is or like how much money you want to make, etc. Obviously, making $10,000 a month is a lot of money and can support you if that's how you kind of want to live. Even you can get to 100K a month with that business model, like info. There are people doing 1 million a month, right? But I think given my unique experience with both the sales and marketing on the growth operating side of things, as well as my technical background in computer science, I I will say, like, it was probably a woman in the red dress kind of moment where my friend pitched me on this thing, and I thought, like, obviously, I didn't know it was 100% successful, but I was willing to take the risk. But this could be like $100 million opportunity, $1 billion opportunity, whatever, right? And at this point in my life, I'm still young. I think it's important to take risks. So I said, okay, I'm going to stop growth operating and I'm going to go in all in on this. So we worked on this for a year. It didn't quite go the way we wanted it to. And again, I'll take full accountability for that. There was likely some sort of skill deficiency I had, or me and my partner had, that just made it so that we couldn't get it to work. But I realized now that I'm coming to graduation soon, like I need to make money to, again, make sure that post grad, like I'm able to support myself and continue doing business, right? Because that business wasn't really making any money at the moment. So I got back into growth operating, but I think the main lesson there that I'm going to kind of hold for a long time is whatever venture you're going into, whether it's growth operating or a new software business, it's really important to leverage your past experiences and domain expertise going in, right? Before joining that crypto startup, I had no familiarity with crypto. I was never buying crypto. I was never into NFTs. I was never consuming crypto knowledge. And as I try to get into that, despite having business skills, it was really difficult for me to understand the pain points of the consumer of the product. It was really hard for me to speak the language that a lot of the influencers and authorities within the space were speaking because they had years and years of experience, whereas I was coming into it fairly fresh. So what I've realized now is I understand this like kind of high ticket call based business. So if I'm moving forward, why would I not take advantage of that experience to create whatever I'm doing like in the future? Because again, like similar to the outreach thing where you're outreaching to people who have similar experiences, all of those benefits compound and increase your likelihood of success. So I think the main two takeaways I would have from that is be very careful of the woman in the red dress. Again, I think Hermosi always says this, as you make more and more money and kind of ascend in the business world, you'll get more attractive and attractive opportunities. It never stops. When you're at maybe $1 million a month, maybe there's a potential like $100 million opportunity or whatever. But it's important to note that you don't know the struggles of that business until you get into it, right? The grass is always greener on the other side. So be wary of the woman in the red dress. And two, always leverage your kind of inherent advantages. Like if you grew up wealthy or you have access to whatever it is, more resources than other people, like take advantage of that. Like, yes, maybe people give you some shit, oh, he's not self-made, whatever. But that's life, right? Why would you not take advantage of those things? And then similarly, if you grew up and you had experience, whether it's in a sport or whether it's in a certain niche, like take advantage of that. That's all stuff that other people probably won't have that can increase your likelihood of success by like a great margin.
Yeah, that is exactly what also Hermosi mentioned as well, is where he did the same thing where he went into different businesses, whether I think crypto, real estate, but those were things that he was not really, knowledgeable in at that time, and he just lost a lot of money because he wasn't aware of, what was going on. So I agree in that. Like I see the difference when from when I was starting to now, like as I progress more and more, I get a bunch of different opportunities. And it's like in the beginning, you kind of have to say yes to a lot of things, but then as you have your own thing, you need to learn how to say no. when it gets into a point where it's like distracting and taking you away from your, your mission and your goals. So yeah,
Yeah. And
so
I think something that was really comforting to me was I actually bought Hermosi's 6K offer on his past webinar. And during the virtual like workshop that he had for those people, he said pretty much every business can get to 100 million in enterprise value, whether it's something, whether it's the business you start originally or something adjacent. Pretty much every business can get to $100 million, right? So if all you want to make is $100 million, like, and I say all, but if that's the goal, pretty much any business can get you there. So don't be worried about, okay, maybe this is a better opportunity or this is a better opportunity. Just stay in that business because I think your advantage like exponentially grows the longer you're in it, right? You learn more things and you're not switching and having to start from zero all over again. Again, if you want to make $1 billion business, sure, like there's probably only very limited things I could do that. But if you want to make $100 million, Hormozy says pretty much any business or any adjacent business that you could pivot to can get there. So that was something that was really comforting to me, knowing that, okay, like realistically, I'm not going to need more than $100 million. At the moment, I have no aspirations to become a billionaire. Maybe that'll change in the future. But that was comforting knowing that, okay, I don't need to keep switching businesses. Like this can get me there. Just need to stick with it long enough and continue to learn and continue to improve.
yeah, that I didn't hear that, but that sounds really as well comforting as well since yeah, like a lot of people are doing a lot of SaaS software now, and it's kind of more different than the business that we've been doing, but then it's also kind of adjacent to it as well. You can integrate it. Like we can talk more about that, like the software you're building. You said to help creators with efforts to actually drive revenue. Why does this problem matter to you specifically? Like explain more about your software and what you're working on, so the people that are watching can benefit from it.
Yeah. So to give like a kind of short answer to what it is specifically, it's meant to be your creative strategist. And I think this is really important because at the moment, like I mentioned, when I was doing content, I was optimizing for views, for followers, right? But when you're running a business, those metrics don't really matter. It's conversions, right? You always want to be optimizing around, okay, what content am I putting out there that is actually driving conversions? So the goal is to create a software that can track what videos are actually driving revenue, but not only track what's driving revenue, but then give you the insights, which is the creative strategist part, on what to continue doing in your content, right? So a lot of the time, like if you're on YouTube or Instagram, you might be looking at the analytics dashboard and you're like, okay, my click-through rate was this and my average view duration was this and my impressions was this. And you look at that and you're like, hmm, this is better than last time, but I don't really know what to do with this, right? So the goal is to give you the ability to get those conversion analytics if you're a business, and then give you the actual actionable steps to continue growing your content and growing your business.
Yeah, that's like data. I hear this many, many times. It's like one of the most important things for your business to grow because you don't want to base your decisions from just emotionally or from, whatever you think is right. But having the data and especially a software that kind of guides you and tells you what to do next to grow your business and improve, I feel like is really, really helpful. And there's kind of a gap right now in that market. So yeah, I think you're in a good vehicle. So you said you had a dropshipping business and then the powerlifting influencing phase and then growth operating, crypto startup, and now back to growth operating plus software. So looking at that journey, what's the common thread? What's the real thing that you're trying to build now?
Well, I'd be lying if it wasn't a lot of it was not to make money, right? I think a lot of us are in this for that kind of financial freedom, time freedom, etc. And I'm also like a very big believer in you got to take care of yourself before you're able to take care of others. Because if you're worried about your own expenses and your own security and whatnot, it's really difficult to care for others and give them the support they need. So admittedly, like, yes, becoming like financially secure is one of the kind of main drivers, and going where I think my expertise best aligns is definitely a big part of it. But I also think that a big thing, especially when I first started growth operating, was I found that I felt more like a glorified employee than a business owner. I was saying yes to all these different opportunities. I was fulfilling for all these different people on my own. And it just felt like there wasn't any like leverage or systems in place to kind of help me scale. And obviously, like that was the bottleneck I probably faced at the time. And I needed to learn how to solve that thing to then get to the next level of business. But knowing that's like a big issue and a big bottleneck for a lot of people that are getting into business, I want, like specifically with this software, to create leverage for those people, right? A lot of the people we work with are very content driven businesses, and they're putting a lot of time and effort into content to hopefully drive revenue to whether it's their coaching or info product. But I want to give them more leverage and more information on the content they're making so that they're getting more from what they're putting in, right? Because content, like realistically, if you don't have a huge content team like Hermosi that's like in charge of each medium and each platform, and they're editing everything for you and they're coming up with ideas, etc., it's really time consuming, right? So I want to make it easier for not just smaller teams, but easier for teams in general or solopreneurs to get more out of the efforts they're putting in.
That is a great, I guess, goal to have and a problem to solve and help. Is that specifically something that you faced, and as well as something that actually makes a difference, and that I can see, a lot of the people that you worked with or I work with face is exactly that. Like a recent client, he was posting a lot of YouTube, but we're just learning from scratch because he's basically started from almost nothing on YouTube, and now in like a month or two, he's at like 1K subscribers. But we're still like posting content similar to this, but not specifically, we don't know exactly what is, helping the business grow the most, but we still are tracking a lot of stuff. So we do realize like, okay, this video with X person helped get, you know, a lot more revenue, but having a tool like this would help make it clear a lot more and speed up that learning curve and that process of the feedback loop to keep improving and to grow the business a lot faster.
Yeah. And
So,
then, sorry.
yeah. No,
And
no,
then
go ahead.
you asked about like impact, and obviously gave the answer of like I want to take care of myself before others. But I think one of the main things I want to kind of do with my personal brand, because obviously that's something I'm trying to build long term, not just to like fuel the business I'm working on now. I think one of the big goals with that is to, because I grew up with a lot of people around me that are really smart and really driven, etc. But a lot of them are a little bit afraid of taking the risk on betting on themselves, similar to like kind of how I was. So part of the mission, I guess, with the personal brand is to show people like kind of what's possible, and that like in the worst case, right, business doesn't work out, etc. Like you can always go back and get a job, and I think at the end of the day you'll be okay. But I want to show people that you can bet on yourself, you can make it work, you can like live the dreams and have the things that you want. Obviously, I think I'll gain more clarity as I continue to put content out there. But I think showing like I have no intention of selling like a B2C offer or biz op offer. But I do want people to know that in this kind of finite life, there's potential to achieve the things that you want.
Yeah, I agree. And tying to that, I had a question like if your 18-year-old self, the one who just started dropshipping, thought he had it all figured out, could see you now, what would surprise him the most about where you end up when you ended up right now?
If I'm being honest, I think my 18 year old self or my like 15-year-old self that started drop shipping.
I guess you can say 15.
Yeah. I think my 15-year-old self would have thought I would be like a millionaire by now, if I'm being honest. Like I was starting so young. Yeah, but you know what's funny though? When I was 15, I still felt like I was starting too late. I still felt like I was 15 years old and I was drop shipping and I was like, fuck, like I started too late. Like there's already these kids that are like millionaires at 15. And it's really funny that that's kind of how it went. But I think by 18, I would have thought like I would have been a millionaire by then, and especially by 22. But again, like anything, the journey is never straight. There's always bends and curves within the path. But regardless of the fact that maybe I'm not a millionaire by now or haven't hit all the financial goals, I think they would be happy. Well, if I'm speaking from a financial perspective or a business perspective, I think they would be happy that I'm still in business and I didn't let any of the kind of downs of the journey kind of throw me off and discourage myself from continuing. And then in terms of like the person I've become in general, I think they'd be really happy that I've maybe become more confident and taken the things that I've committed to very seriously, like the gym, etc. So I think they'd be proud of the person I've become, like very passionate about my beliefs, very action oriented around the things that I say, sticking to my word, my promises. And then on the business side, just still in the game despite all the kind of hurdles that have come up.
Yeah, I think that's what's the most important is to stay in the game for a long duration of time. And that's when you will start to recognize patterns, you'll start to learn more, and you'll start to grow more because you are still in the game. And as long as you don't give up, you will kind of get more success as you go. And like you said, skills, experience, knowledge, and all of the above. And it's not just about, financially itself. It's just about, like you said, like, because there's always like, I think I saw this video from a good friend of mine where he said there's always two paths or two type of person is like the one that didn't do the things that, or basically like two different paths of like the bad decisions and the good decision. So you're still in like, if you just compare both, just the path that you're in right now, the things the places that you're able to visit, I guess the things that you've done in business as well, I think it's still something that, for example, a younger version of me would be proud of. And I assume a younger version of you would be proud of because just even like as a 15-year-old brain or, a younger person, we don't actually imagine sometimes the possibilities of the reality of business and where you can be because usually at that age, we're not making much money, not many things going on, and we don't know the actual reality of, life and business as much. Yeah, I think just looking if you actually looked at where we are now, I think they'd be proud. So, you said this about freedom, autonomy, and creating something meaningful, but let's get specific. What does freedom actually look like in your daily life right now? Is it a number in a bank account? Is it time? Is it choice? Paint me the picture of what you're actually building towards.
I think the way I would define freedom would just be like the ability of choice. I'm not someone who loves to travel or loves to do things like that, but if I wanted to, like just knowing that I could do it is really meaningful. And at the moment, I'm not like in the need of like I very much work like many, many hours and I don't do a lot of the things that I don't have a lot of time to do other things other than work at the moment. But in the future, just knowing that if I wanted to like, take the day off and spend time with my kids or spend time with my wife, like I would be able to do that. Or for whatever reason, if my parents are sick or if something comes up, I have the ability to like travel without any like financial worry or anything to them. Or if unexpected things come up, I'm able to pay for those things without worry. Because even online, I see sometimes like for something as simple as like your pet having health issues and you can't pay for the surgery or can't pay for the care and you have to put the pet down, or you have a relative or a loved one and they have some sort of complicated medical issue that's not covered by insurance and you can't pay for that. I just don't want to be limited by something so like this creation of money. Like this money thing is like not even real. So I'd be a little upset if in the future this thing kind of constrains me from doing the things that I want and spending the time with the people I love. Like something as simple as money, right? Like we're human beings. Like why have this concept of money kind of limit us and obstruct kind of what we can do and want to do?
Yeah, I really like that. It's not that's something a lot of us realize as we get into business, we get into because of the flashy lifestyle. I want to be a millionaire and everything like that. But then as you actually, um, for some of us, I think for most of us, as entrepreneurs, like things like that, the freedom of choice, the freedom of financially being able to pay for things that's a huge unlock because the other side of it is, for example, if you continue the internship and stuff like that, or, the medical route, you still, for the most part, have constraints of either time, you have work, you can't skip work, or financially as well. So having the, more the freedom of more your schedule and time as well as financial is a huge unlocks for entrepreneurs and for, people like yourself. Yeah. I have one last question from my audience is what is the biggest tools that helped you achieve the 20K a month?
Tools as in like what, software or tools as in skills?
To be honest, I'm not sure. That's all he gave me. Uh,
Tools. I guess if we kind of narrow down tools to just like anything that could be useful, I would say I think mentorships are always valuable. I don't think they're necessary, but I think the reason they're actually valuable is because you're making some sort of commitment to yourself by when you pay, because now you've paid and you have to like do it. Whereas when you get free information, it's like everything is there, all the information is there. But if you're not committed financially, especially when money is like a big thing for you at like the moment, you don't actually take the action you need. But I think that's a really complicated question because it depends on like what scenario you're talking about. Like if it's for my first client, I would say the tool. I mean, there's really no tool. There's no secret to it. Like honestly, you don't even need that much skill. It's just like taking action and sending the outreach. And then from there, like trying to get to, I think, okay, the biggest tool is just investing in education and mentors. You can always, like, if you're smart enough, which I think most people are generally smart, you can figure out everything on your own. It might take you double, triple, quadruple the amount of time. But if you can get access to people who have been in the game longer, who have been where you want to be, and they can kind of show you the path, I think that's always valuable. I've spent over $20,000 in mentorships, probably just within the past like year and a half. And I genuinely believe like those mentorships and those people that I've met and have guided me have changed my life. So it's something I'll continue to invest in. And even at the moment, like all the money I make goes back into learning more and setting up systems. I think that's the real tool and the real unlock is not being so stingy with your money when you plan to spend it on something that's probably unnecessary anyways, like a PlayStation or whatever it is. So yeah, because I think even recently, right? Whenever I'm making money now, I think like I see this thing that I want. Like recently it's been, I don't know if you know these, but like the Kith Birkenstocks, they're like 300 and something bucks, which is like not a crazy amount. But when I think about how much they cost and how what I could use that money on instead within the business to make more money, I'm like, why would I spend it on that? I could just go make more money. For example, like I have an engineer on my team, I pay 50 an hour. And so that like a lot of things right now, I think like in that lens, right? So for those that 300 bucks, I could pay this guy like for 6 hours of work. So it's like use your money wisely to grow the business and increase your earning potential. And don't be afraid to invest in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned as well is in the beginning, every money that I made, I even went into the debt to invest into mentorships and all that. And, being a 17-year-old in high school. And then from there, that's my mindset as well. It's like if I have money, I'm just gonna spend it on like I don't know, random things to buy and like food or clothes or I don't know what else spend at that time. But in my head, it just made a lot of sense of like, okay, I don't have much bills right now, and it's better to just reinvest, 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 reinvest. And yeah, that's also a mistake that I did even after later on I made more money. I went a little bit, spent little bit on a little bit too much onto lifestyle and things like that. But if I spent all that money into, of course, like I learned different lessons and got many things, met many people, and it's a experience that for a young person to travel, it's something that is not common as much, and being able to experience that was really great, right? Going forward, being like you said, more wisely of that exact amount that you spend on this X, Y, and Z, spending it on your business, yourself. I think yeah, until you get to was it forgot the exact amount, but Hermosi was saying until you get to a certain point, it's always good to invest into yourself and before investing to other investments. But yeah, like
And
yeah,
recently, again, like I mentioned, I like the materialistic stuff. Like I like the nice cars, I like the nice watches. But, like, at the end of the day, I've had some of those things, and, like, once you get them, they don't you realize, "Oh, wow, it's not all that." So, especially recently, I looked into Hormozi's story, I looked into Alex Becker's story, um, and the common kind of like, Alex Becker, specifically, when he was running his, like, info business, he bought all the cars, he bought the nice house, etcetera, and then later he sold it all while he was building Hyros, and I think and then Hormozi, like, they see like, he was making, like, 20, 30K a month, and he was still living, like, with a roommate in some crusty apartment. Don't quote me on that, but it's, like, something along those lines, and I think something I'm trying to, like, incorporate more is, like, don't unnecessarily, like, increase your bills. I don't wanna get, like, too controversial here, but, like, for example, like, if you're Sam Millsap, right, and you're making 300K a month, like, a couple months ago or whatever last year, and your expenses, like, kinda scale with that thing. So you have the nice cars, you have the nice house, etcetera, and then your business dips down to, like, 30K a month. Like, how are you gonna maintain those bills? Like, if you want to start a new business or if you want to start investing into assets like real estate, etc., like your hands are tied. You can't do anything else because you've scaled all of these expenses that you're now trying to keep up with. And then you start making bad decisions because you're like, okay, I need to make a lot of money right now. Let me milk my audience or whatever, right? So I think keeping your expenses like as low as possible for as long as you can so that you're not tied to them. Like you're not a slave to those things is like really important and something I want to do because if I'm making 100K a month, whatever, and I can still live like the way I live right now, which is like fairly, I don't think I would live like in a dirty apartment like I think Hermosi said he was, where there was like dog shit and stuff. Um, I
Yeah, he's
I still think it's unnecessary to kind of go overboard with it because there's so many things you can do with that extra money. And I think especially as an entrepreneur, like that feeling of security and not having your back against the wall financially, which causes you to make like decisions that might not be in the best interest of the long term, but rather the short term is really important because you need to be able to look like a year down the line, 2 years down the line to make really good decisions. But if you're only worried about, okay, I need to make a decision to benefit me 1 month from now, 30 days from now, a week from now, I think that's when you start running into things that are probably not the best options.
Yeah, I agree. I think even Sam Millsap, I don't want, like you said, too much controversial, but I think he even made a recent video where he realized like he stopped showing his lifestyle too much and he's making just more valuable content or more raw content. And yeah, that's something I realized. Like I'm not gonna name his name, but some other guy that was showing a lot of his lifestyle and spending a bunch of money on that. And then now he cut back on it because he was just burning a ton of cash and he can, use that extra money to invest into different things, which made him more money, right? And yeah, like I think, like you said, being able to think ahead is like having a bunch of is basically like some in Hermosi's book that I started reading. It was saying like the guy told Hermosi, "How long do you have to live?" Because Hermosi started his new business, and he had like about a month left to live, which means like he has only a month left of bills that he can pay before going bankrupt, I guess, right? But if Hermosi had more time, or if you basically have more money and less bills, you have more, like, let's say if you didn't make any money, you have many months of living or maybe years, which will basically make you think longer term. So I think that's a really valuable, really, really, really valuable thing because then you don't get to a point where some people are, you know, getting to the line of or the continuum of scamming people or ruining their reputation or doing things that they don't want to do but they because they need money and like you said to keep paying for their bills. So yeah, that is not a great place to be. And yeah, it's the real wealthy people are the ones that actually build real wealth that you can't see. And then when it gets to a point where they're so wealthy that they have to upgrade, or they upgrade because it's necessary or makes more sense. Like you said, like if you're making 100K a month, you're not going to be in a dirty apartment because it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you unnecessarily be in there when you can find something better, right? And that doesn't cost too much, but that will help you in your business, being more clean and all that. But yeah, do you have any last things? I really enjoyed this podcast and catching up with you. And do you have any last words for the audience or things do you want to leave them with?
I think I think we covered everything. It was obviously like a pleasure to speak to you, and kind of do this podcast together. I know weren't sure if we were actually going to get it done, but I would love to again like run a part two in the future. Hopefully, when the software is more established. Like at the moment, we just have some beta users, but yeah, it was a pleasure, bro. I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad that you kind of were able to have me on.
Thank you. And where can they find you with? I think I'll just put in the description. You guys can find Avi. I'll put his Instagram down below. Connect with him. And yeah, it was great to have you on. And I'm gonna try to keep more doing more of these. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There we go. All right.